Many conflicts in the English-speaking world are part of an ancient struggle between the English and the British. The United States originated from English colonies founded in the 1600s. But in 1707, England, Wales, Scotland, and later Ireland joined together in a united kingdom. They called this British, not an ethnic designation. The English, Welsh, Scottish, and Irish were fiercely distinctive in religion, language, and culture. For them, British had a constitutional meaning. It was multicultural and inclusive, many nations in one political union under the symbol of the Constitutional Monarchy. The United States came from English colonies of the 1600s. Canada came from British colonies of the 1700s, adding French and Aboriginal nations. Organizational culture is long-lasting. The U.S. monoculture and Canadian multiculture endures. Melting pot versus mosaic. King George III almost bankrupted Britain defending the English colonies from French, Spanish, and native armies in the 7 Years' War. American colonists were grateful, and each year the King's birthday and coronation were their most important celebrations. In the negotiations after the war, the French king had to choose either the islands of Martinique and Guadeloupe or Quebec. He chose the islands. Quebec became British. King George II had exiled French colonists. King George III recognized their currency, language, religion, and culture with full rights. In the idealistic first half of his reign, King George III laid three foundations for British Canada that alienated the English United States. His proclamation of 1763 confirmed the sovereignty of native peoples. Never ratified by Parliament, it remains the foundation of Aboriginal legal power in Canada. The Declaration of Independence condemned the King's support for the merciless Indian savage. Wealthy colonists like George Washington held native land in violation of the King's proclamation. In 1772, King George III became the first great emancipator, when an American slave and 15,000 others were freed unless a law were passed to legalize slavery. King George, whose Queen Charlotte was part African, refused. American law would eventually have to fall in line with the mother country. Slave owners like Washington and Jefferson turned against Britain. 41 of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence owned slaves. King George proclaimed the Quebec Act, giving full rights to French-speaking Catholics. The American colonists called it one of the intolerable acts. These three decisions were at least as responsible for the American Revolution as the tax on tea. When the American armies attacked, the French and the Native Alliance opted for the British concept of many nations under the symbol of the Constitutional Monarchy and defeated the Americans. Because of their success, over 100,000 Loyalists moved to Canada. Many Loyalists were prevented from leaving and remained in the U.S. Hundreds were tarred and feathered to intimidate Loyalist communities. New York, the most loyal city in the U.S., retains a special attachment with Canada, as do other Loyalist areas. Well into the Revolutionary War, George Washington and his officers ended each day with a toast to their king. But the English colonies never embraced the idea of being British. The first Congress representatives called themselves His Majesty's faithful subjects, but stressed they were Protestant Englishmen. Whereas they might have rallied support saying, "The British are coming," they could never have said, "The English are coming." They defined themselves as Englishmen. On the West Coast, the Gaelic and French-speaking Catholics of the Northwest Company were comfortable calling themselves British Columbians. King George III defined Canada as a country of evolution, not revolution, with legal protections for Native people, equality of the French language, legal support for ethnic minorities, and an ambivalence about displays of patriotism. The English prefer pure democracy, or a referendum, which plays to their greater numbers. The British prefer Aristotle's formula, to moderate rule by the majority, a traditional ancient form of government, an appointed council, and an elected assembly, called a balanced constitution. This is the monarchy, the Senate, and the House of Commons. Since the Glorious Revolution's creation of the Constitutional Monarchy and the conversion of English monarchs to British monarchs, they have become political stabilizers, not political agitators. The British Parliament turned to Europe for their monarch and found it in King George I, a British king who never learned to speak English. Brexit continues this old conflict between the English and the British, Patriots versus Loyalists. The referendum, a concept foreign to the British, was imported from the Patriots of the English Colonies. The Scottish, Irish, Welsh, and the City of London voted to remain. The Patriots of England voted to leave, repeated in the 2019 election. Will the once Great Britain break down into its component parts, dominated by a little England? Within Canada, the United States, and other English-speaking countries, neo-patriots and neo-loyalists continue their struggle. U.S. President Trump told the United Nations, "The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots." Time will tell if he was right.